All right. Good evening. Good evening. Hope you all are doing well. Hope you're doing good. It is a Thursday night. It's the last Thursday of the month. And you know what? It's also the last Thursday of the year. But it is time for you to sit back, enjoy us, get in here with us with a little bit of homeschool. Heritage Homeschool with Senator Maggie Glover. All right. And before we get into the show, what I want to do is I want to thank everyone who found it not robbery to be here with us. The topic that we're going to discuss here is back to basics, like our foundations. That's very important for us to know where we're from, know that we have to build from these from our foundation. And today we have a esteemed elder with us. So as we embark on this journey of legacy learning with our esteemed elder, Senator Maggie Glover, we will delve into the stories, traditions, and teachings that have stood the test of time within our community. Celebrate the notion that the first school is the homeschool, and your family's guidance lays the groundwork for a lifetime of education. So join us as we explore the timeless art of homeschooling in its most profound sense. Now, for those of you who didn't get an opportunity to see the first episode, you have the opportunity to go to YouTube and watch that. It is also available here on Facebook. So go back and watch the first episode. But I want to introduce Miss Glover here again. This is only our second episode, but I want you to know who we have running this classroom. I think that's very important. So my good listeners, welcome to Heritage Homeschool, the podcast where we unravel the threads of wisdom woven into the fabric of our homes and communities. Our host is Senator Maggie Glover. But before we embark on this journey, I need to share a bit with you about Ms. Glover. Our esteemed guest today is the pillar of our community. She wears many hats. She's not just a mother, she's a community leader, activist, and a staunch advocate of arts, culture, and the preservation of history. Now, let me paint the picture of her remarkable journey. Maggie Glover holds the distinguished honor of being the first African-American woman elected to South Carolina State Senate from 1992 to 2004. She fearlessly represented the people, leaving an incredible mark on our state's legacy in our legislative history. Before that, she served with distinction in the South Carolina House of Representatives from 1989 to 1992, championing the needs of House District 62 in Darlington and Florence. In 1983, breaking barriers once again, Maggie became the first Black woman to serve on the Florence School District 1 school board. Her commitment to education echoes through the years, shaping the minds of generations to come. And let's not forget the accolades that underscore her timeless dedication. In 1993, Maggie Glover became a recipient of the Order of the Palmetto, the highest civilian honor awarded by the governor of South Carolina. This prestigious award is a testament to her extraordinary lifetime achievements, service, and contributions of national and statewide significance. So as we sit down with Maggie here this evening, let's explore the lessons she has gathered through her experiences, the lessons that transcends textbooks and classrooms, embodying the very essence of Heritage Homeschool. So I think it's only right that I introduce to you right now the lady of the hour. How are you, Senator?
Oh, thank you so very much, MsTONYA. Just to have someone your age even acknowledge someone my age is remarkable. And I say that with all sincerity because you don't see a lot of that anymore. And those are roots along our heritage line that I just think that we've got to, with some deliberate speed, get back to that kind of Black America. And I want you to know that I am most appreciative and encouraged, because there is never just one of any of God's creations. So I know that if you're saying it, you are doing this podcast, so there are others who are listening, who are also following your example. And that is encouraging. And that is so necessary
All right.
for us to go into 2024. And everybody, happy and a Merry Christmas. I hope you had. As of, I think, Tuesday, December 26th, we began the celebration of Kwanzaa. And so I wish you a learning, a reviving Kwanzaa this year, and a prosperous and a happy new year.
All right, all right. Okay, well, you know what? We're going to get right into it. You know, everybody should. There's a few people who are within that celebration, and you can speak a little bit on that. But one of the first questions that I really want to kind of get the conversation going here is, can you share with us some insights of your early years and the values instilled in you by your family and by the community?
I guess I'm like most children who honestly believe that their mom and dad and their families are the best there are. That's Maggie. My mom, honestly, was my very best friend. We shared so much. It was nothing, even when I left home in college and as a young adult, it was nothing for me to pick up the phone, regardless of hour, and I could call and I could say, Mama, let me tell you what just happened. And she would patiently listen to me, laugh with me, cry with me, whatever was required. My mom and my dad, my grandmother were all in my life. And I whatever success I have had, I promise you, it was because of their teachings. Their teachings. My mom they lived I was born in what is called Greenbrook, out 52, headed into Darlington. At that time, it was referred to as the Harold McGill. I started to say plantation, but it was really a farm. And my father and his father and his 10 brothers and 4 sisters, and then my mom and her brother were all sharecroppers on the McGill farms out in the Brook Green area. And while my mother was there, she literally moved from Brook Green to Florence and to attend Wilson School, and went through the 10th grade. And I think back then, that was graduation. Because and I think about that now, the fact that I did not really ask my mom about that 10th grade, but that I know she went through the 10th grade and moved. She came to Florence and lived in Aunt Honey's house. And now Aunt Honey's house is the house that is still standing on Lucas Street and Darlington Street. Right there, it's right up as soon as you cross the Martin Luther King Bridge, and you were going to make that right turn onto Darlington. I think on that side is Oakland Avenue, because that's what you go around the curve. But right there on that very corner is a 2-story house, wooden house. It is, of course, all grown up now, but Aunt Honey lived in that house, and my mother moved from the country. I laugh about that all because if you know, that's about 2 miles down from where Brook Green is now. But in their minds, if you're walking or going by horse and buggy, that was a long distance.
Right.
And so that's where she lived, and stayed there during the week, and then walked back home on Fridays to be back with her mom and brother.
I see we got somebody in here who actually knows what you're talking about here. Let me bring some comments up for a minute here. I see we got Precious Pearl in here. She's saying, good evening. How are you? We also have William Stokes in the house with us saying, what's up, family? How are you doing? Also, I want to give out some greetings here to Craig Boatwright. Good to have you in here in the house with us, and also Audrey Davis. And as Ms. Glover is going through her story, I see that somebody actually knows what you're talking about here. We've got Precious Pearl in here who says the Blue House. So is Precious Pearl right about that being the Blue House?
Yeah, well, that's what they call it now. Yes. Yes. And tell her, power to the sister.
Well, guess what? You see that people are paying attention in class. So go ahead and continue the story.
Yes. And so the Tiger connection goes way back for me. And as a young girl, my mom was a domestic and basically worked like at the China shop. That was the place that she worked downtown for the longest, but literally worked in white homes and an immaculate cleaner to start with. And so wherever she worked, she was there for years and years, because most of these people would not dare think about letting Dale, as she was affectionately called. Her name was Ethel, but letting Dale go. No, that was not going to happen. And so soft-spoken woman, but you were going to represent the principles of her home. And she made sure you knew those principles and that you knew how you were to present yourself in these streets. And please understand, as many of those who are listening, if you're my age, you know that. See, we were the generation that 8 o'clock, and that is the summer. 8 o'clock in the summer when the street lights came on, your little happy butt had better be home and not coming. You are home. and those kinds of restrictions. At 5, my daddy got off at 5, so dinner was at 6, and it was mandatory. And please understand, these were now our parents weren't mean and yelling and screaming. In fact, they so affectionately told you the rules is why it was mandatory. You felt guilty if you didn't do what mama and daddy said, because they also allowed us to know that if it were not for these little pennies that they bring home from what was called then the job, life would be quite different for you. And so you needed to respect that. And we did. We did. I listen at young people now, and the tone that they take with just grown-ups in general was, oh my God, you would have been punished for years for disrespecting or raising your voice at the elder. And they didn't care if this was the town's drunk or as grandmama, no, you know, she's a polite moose. They didn't care who it was. If that person is older than you, then you didn't have a choice.
You're right.
You had to respect that.
You did. And I see we have Craig Boat right here. He said he's sitting under the learning tree. And that's very much how I feel about that as well. We've got Amina who's sending out hearts. So everybody is really, they're really enjoying the conversation that you're having here. But I want to ask you something. As someone who is deeply connected to community and family, how do you personally envision passing on wisdom and your experience to the future generations? Because it sounds like this is it. But what advice would you give some parents? How could they do some of these things?
The number one thing that parents today must know and do, and that is teach the children. They don't know because you didn't tell them. You are first teacher, and even theology makes mama first teacher and is then supported by the head of the house, daddy. And these days, I see way too much of, I want to be my kid's friend. I want to be the cool mom. The hip mom and dad. Hipness comes when you have taught your children to understand what that means as a parent. And just talking to your children. Like I was saying earlier, 5 o'clock, my daddy got off, and that was the general time in my neighborhood. All of the families in my the neighborhood I live in now, to be exact, but all of them, dads got home shortly by 5:30 at the latest, and so dinner hour was 6 o'clock, and we all had to be at the table where it was mandatory. You had to say grace. You wanted to be popped with a spoon or something, stick your hand in your plate before grace is said. And the grace we recited was the one mama taught, because her mama taught her that. And so I got it in both households, my grandmama's house and my mama's house. But those kinds of things, children will never know these things. And neither can you as a parent make that somebody else's. That's why I send them to school. I hope not. Because the school can't tell your kid who he or she is. You got to do that. And you got to tell them what is expected of them. And the values that are promoted in this household. And so that's what my parents, all of them, and I'm talking about every kid that I can remember in my class. Parents came to school. They didn't come ready to fight the teacher, the principal, and they didn't come bringing grandmama, granddaddy, 2 uncles, and 6 aunts. And this is a gang attack on somebody who said something to my child. No, they came to school to see, okay, with the homework that we did on Wednesday night, I want to know how can I best help Maggie and Leonard get this? Almost a forgotten art, because we're so busy picking up on the BS of this life.
Oh, wow.
Just nitpicking, and it's everybody else's fault.
You know what? You're probably stepping on a lot of toes right now, to be honest, because, when I heard you say, well, that's why I sent them to school. And I hear that a lot.
Yes.
And that makes no sense to me. And also, not only that, but we actually have these devices raising our kids these days. They're on the internet, they're on their phones all the time. You're talking about, you mentioned there's no way that you would be able to eat dinner and put your fork in that dinner if you didn't say your grace. Well, guess what? We got young people now who are sitting at the table and they like this. They're on their phones.
Thank you. Yes. Yes, indeed. Oh my goodness. Yes. I attended an NAACP conference, and BB Winans was the guest that evening at the convention. And the young lady at the table, a mom and her 3 kids, was seated at the table where I was sitting. And from the moment they came in and sat at that table, all 4 remained on their phones. They said something about BB being the guest, and the kids all went, wow. That was all they heard. Even one had to nudge the others to let them know that BB was on the stage. Mama even had to put down the phone and turn around to see the performance. And I sat there in utter amazement. A whole hours. I couldn't figure out what was the reason for coming. You could have saved, because they weren't cheap tickets. You could have saved that money if all you were going to do was your phone.
I don't get it. I really don't get it. People, they do that at restaurants as well.
Yes.
They really are. It's almost like, they were saying some time ago that, we would have chips put into our brains. And I said, you know what? I don't know what you guys are thinking, because you already have the chip, because you don't go anywhere
Thank you.
without this thing right here. Like nowhere. You're always logged on. It's
Thank
already
you.
in your brain. Let me ask you this. What inspired you to become a community activist, and how did you first begin to get involved with local issues?
Again, my mom and dad, when they finally got a chance to register. Now, remember, at this time, we're talking 1965, the Voting Rights Act. Maggie was born in the 40s, and here, white women got the right to vote in 1920. It would then take to 1965 before Black folk got the chance to register and vote. 1965. And so my mom and my dad, as a little girl, I remember us all getting into the family little car, my grandmama, my uncle, and my older sister who lived with grandmama then. All of us going down along with 4 other cars in the neighborhood, going to Lake City, South Carolina, to a pasture. And I do mean a pasture, where I saw Dr. King for the first time in my life. And I shall never, ever forget that. My mom came and got us out of school to go and watch she and my dad, who could not read. My dad went to the 3rd grade, and that's another story. Every day he would come home from work, and I would already have the newspaper, because I knew I was supposed to have the newspaper for my dad. He would go to the side porch, we now call that the sunroom. Go to the side porch and sit in that second chair, and I sat in his lap and read him the newspaper all the time while I'm doing this, because I'm still at Carver Elementary School then. I'm thinking that my daddy is listening to me read. I was in the 8th grade before I realized that my father could not read. Now, he's always been able to write his name. He signs his own check and all of that, but he could not just read a page. But you would never, ever know that, because he would tell me, oh, you can read that better than that. Stop breaking it up, the sentence. Say the whole. And in the 8th grade, I discovered this man, and you telling me all of these, correcting me, and nobody can read. But I would have died first. And he probably would have helped in that demise if I had said that.
Right.
But the ultimate of respect.
And you know what? What I found very interesting is that you said he didn't read, but he could sign his name.
Yes.
And that brings me to the fact that they actually took in cursive writing out of school. And you have generations of young people who do not know how to sign their name. They're printing. And they tell themselves, and I hear this debate all the time, that it's not important to be able to write in cursive. I can't believe it. What are your thoughts on that?
Again, did this man that is leading the Republican ticket, said this week in a group to a rally in Michigan that on his first day, he was going to deport 10 million people. The third thing that he said he was going to do on that first day was to eliminate federal funding for education and take it back to the states so states could then teach what they wanted. He made sure that critical race theory would get you defunded. He would not put a copper cent into teaching that kind of junk, is what the leading Republican candidate said. And the ironic thing about that, when I saw it on Facebook, and my phone is in the car as always, but I will make sure I show it to MsTONYA before I leave. There is a young Black man, dreads, and he is here cheering, clapping, all of this to every word that the Republican leading candidate said. And I'm here in utter awe, because, baby, young Black man, you do know, I hope you know, you'll be in the 10 million. He's not keeping you, and he has already said, if they call your name, anything, that's what the critical race theory, they talking about you. And he's going to defund any knowledge, any history of you. That's why parenting. See, these were the conversations around my table as an elementary school child. Those were the things that we were talking about. I can tell you unquestionably about my mother and father's love of Kennedy, President John Kennedy. And my mom cried like a family member had passed. But we don't give that foundation to this generation. And they don't know when they're being talked about or not, because they don't have history. They don't know that this man is turning back all of the gains that your ancestors fought and died for. I was on the school board here in Florence 1 when I was finally able to get this 9-member board, well, 6 of the 9 members, to approve African American studies. And now you're saying we just got it, and to be honest, never fully implemented, never fully emerged into our educational systems.
You're right.
And now you're talking about getting rid and punishing those who would dare to talk about race.
Right. I see we've got a comment here. Yamika here, she says, I wholeheartedly agree that the Republican agenda has changed and they are attempting to erase our history from the American perspective.
They are. And thank God. And tell whoever wrote that, tell everybody you know.
Right.
Because that's why I'm thankful for this platform and for what you are doing. Because there's no, if I don't tell people, if I don't share what I know with today's young, how can I complain? You give up the right when if you're not doing anything about it, then no, you can't talk about that.
You're right.
That must be all right with you. Because if you disapprove, they need to know. Right. And no, you don't have to have the television cameras and they don't have to be on the podcast. You just got to tell those people you come in contact with. Because you got to remember, that's what your ancestors did.
You're right.
We didn't have a phone.
But you know what? That's why it is so important that you being from your generation and bringing this information and bringing your history, your experience, your activism, and doing it in this forum. The reason why that is so important, and I'm very happy to be a part of it. You know, we've got our producer here back on the scenes, Shalonda Dees, who is behind the scenes, and I want to give her those flowers because it takes that. Because you know this is one of her babies. This is something that she wanted to do, and I agree. And this is a project that we've been able to work on together. But the reason why it is so important is because we know that these young people are always plugged in. We know that they're clicking on something, strolling through something, and it may not be this exact podcast right now, but perhaps their parents or somebody could say, you need to listen to this. And then it goes back to the people who don't have that. They're not having those family discussions. So some of the things that you're talking about, this is the first time that they're hearing it. And that's what makes this very important. So, you know, just merging the old school with the new school. And to be honest, I'm a little bit old school myself, you know, because I am middle age, but I know how important it is. And I know that there's just a vast amount of knowledge that you have that I don't have. Like I might know how to push some of these technical buttons, but I don't have all of that experience that you have. So you are appreciated. But we've got people in here who are saying, let me get some of these comments up here. We've got again, and I'm probably jacking up her name here. What is it? What is her name? Yahamaka. She's saying absolutely. It starts at home. Amina is saying yes. Everybody is totally agreeing because we're not getting this knowledge. Or these young people not getting the knowledge. They're taking the stuff out of the school. So where is it going to come from?
Thank you. When you don't have a foundation, I don't care what it is that you're trying to do, it starts from some foundation. And when we don't give our kids their foundation, we cannot expect them to build, to move from this point. No, when you don't know from whence you have come, it is extremely difficult to move forward. You don't know what is history or what is futuristic if nobody ever told you anything. And having been in education, my only job has been as an educator. And I have watched the decline in my students over the years. And honestly, it goes right back. Every time it goes right back to Homeschooling. Homeschooling. Your child would not get in trouble at school if you had told him what to do at home. Grades would be what you demand in your house. How much help? I know about parents who are running around in the evenings trying to find a special little tube so Maggie can finish her smoking man science project. That involved. And now we, in the elementary school kids, they're coming to school with their little book bag on their backs and a phone. Elementary school, really?
It's not making a lot of sense. It
None.
really isn't.
None whatsoever.
It's not. And, you know, I don't want us to, I listened and I realized that you said you saw Dr. King in Lake City.
Yes, in a pasture, a cow where they grew little grass and threw out where the cows would graze, that kind of pasture.
Okay. Well, just hearing that, you know, just a very notable civil rights leader that you saw within our region, I'm wondering if you could remember any local activists who contribute to the fight of civil rights that you might have a memory of.
Oh gosh, here in Florence, oh, Reverend Sharper, and honestly, every pastor that has been at Trinity. When the Poor People's March first came to Florence, when they were marching to DC for the famous March on Washington, people like Mordecai C. Johnson, like I said, Reverend Sharper, that was the pastor then at Trinity, Bobby Jolly, Freddie Williams, who were the leaders of the Community Action Agency here, and hardcore activists. E.J. McIver, who's still with us, was one of the first Black County Council people here in Florence. He and Mordecai C. Johnson. And I never shall forget, E.J. McIver read the entire Constitution, the preamble and the first articles, waiting for Mordecai C. Johnson to get to the meeting, because there was this particular bill they had been working on, and Attorney Johnson was still collecting data for this very meeting, and they wanted to move on and table it for a later time. EJ was not having that. And so he started reading to them why they should not be able to do that by using the Constitution. And every time they wanted to get up, now let me repeat this. And he did that until Mordecai C. Johnson got there and they were able to deal with the issue at hand. Oh, there are so many sisters and brothers. We were, in fact, one of the other things that Miss Dees has done for this community is to sponsor these meetings of sisters as we talk about Black folk in South Carolina who changed history. And we to date have she's done 2 of these sessions. The first one was about the Rawlings sisters who helped get white women the right to vote in the 20s, and how these sisters really strategically worked with Congress. With the state house, with our state government, trying to get things in the Black community. The last one she just did was Sarah Fleming out of Hopkins, out of the Hopkins community, but got hit by the bus driver in Columbia, South Carolina on Sumter Street, where the bus stop still stops. And she got hit on the bus because she sat down in a seat, because even all of the Black seats in the back of the bus was packed, and all of the seats in the front. So she and two other white women were standing when this person got off the bus, and it was right there in front of Fleming. And so she sat, and the man yelled at her and told her to get up. And during this time, when he's yelling at her, he gets to the next bus stop and opens the door. And so the white women behind her are pushing her to move on off the bus. And so they actually squeezed past her and got on off the front of the bus. So she went right behind them because she couldn't get off the back. And he balled up his fist and threw his arm, hitting her in the stomach to stop her from going out of the front of the bus. Columbia, South Carolina. The history is steep. Right here in Florence. Oh, Iola Jones. You're talking about Vashti Smith, Miss Williams, who worked with her, and they got Faith Nursing Home together. Miss Iola Jones, who had one of the first Black orphanages here. I had classmates who lived in the orphanage out behind where Tech is now. These were people who were carving a way and a path for us to follow. And yet so few of these children know anything at all about them, because parents no longer talk to their children. I keep asking young people, who is Jesse Eugene Russell? Keep asking, who is Jesse Eugene Russell? And it is amazing. And when you find a student who does, ask them where they got that information from. And most often it will be from one of my classes or church, where I have asked them to Google Black father of the cell phone. This thing that has become an appendage for our children was created, and still the man is living and breathing as we speak, who gave us 2G, now all the way to 5. This is his work that began with a simple phone, a cell phone. And yet, those of us who live by this instrument have no idea that a black man who went to an HBCU created, this is his invention, the cell phone. And we know nothing about it. Homeschooling must return. Must return.
Woo, 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 woo. Let me tell you something. You just gave him a bit of knowledge there. You know that, right? A whole lot of knowledge you just gave to him. I got a few more comments here that I can bring up. And we have Miss Modestine Sammy. She says, thank you, Senator Glover, for having a frank conversation to parents and what we must do to help our own children. We have piece of cake conversations. Also thanking you for sharing these names. I have research to do so that I can continue to do grassroots work with fidelity, following in their footsteps. Okay.
Oh, yes. Senator Frank Gilbert. Oh, you can just go down the list of names. Senator Gilbert carved the path I traveled. He was my Wilson High School guidance counselor, and most of these people will recognize that name. I shall never forget Frank Gilbert, because all of the stuff that I've done in politics, I owe to him. I never, when the first time I took the PSAT, and I think it was 700 and something I scored. And the counselor, Frank Gilbert, sent for me. And I came to his office, and he's holding up the test results on a half sheet of paper just like this. And he said, you and I talked about your going to college and stuff. He said, but young lady, with this score, no, you won't. And gave me all of this information on what to study, how to study it, so that I could get the SAT score I needed to get into school. And there are hundreds of graduates of Wilson High School who will tell you the same. Frank Gilbert came to me and told me he was already, and I had worked on his campaign when he first went to the House. He came and told me, I'm a grown woman now. He came and told me, Maggie, I'm going to run for the Senate, and you are going to run for my House seat. And I laughed. And he said, you laugh all you want, but you are going to make the effort. I said, what? Anyway, the history is what you read at the opening.
Wow.
And that's how I got there. And when he left the Senate running for Congress, that's how I got to the Senate. Because once again, Frank came and told me, this is what I'm going to do, and this is what you're going to do. Now,
Wow.
remember, my parents taught me. He's an elder. This is my high school counselor. I dare not say to my elder, I ain't doing that. No, I knew my mother would, oh, child, please. She would have come back from the grave and I would have felt that slap there. No, but that's what I'm talking about. You go down the list, one of the baddest black men I know is Gerard A. Anderson, the principal of Wilson High School. Back in the times when all other black schools and stuff was getting second handed stuff, hand-me-down books. They've already gone through McClinigan and been torn up by those kids, and they shipped them on to black schools in the state. That's how we got most of the stuff. Bands and stuff. We had our little black pants and white shirts and a little bow tie or a tie or something, and that was your band uniform. Not at Wilson High School. This man parlayed the system to make sure we got first class everything, from teachers to the materials that we used in our schools. This man parlayed and made sure we got it. And he was able to pay young black teachers a salary that at least allowed them to live. It was higher than what we were getting on the streets. But these are the heroes, and these are the people who touched my life, that made excellence a requirement.
Understood.
It was never just do this to do this. No.
Mm-hmm.
And they would ask you why. When you were messing up, they didn't come and just stop popping you. They wanted, why are you doing this?
Mm-hmm.
What's your purpose? And there's nothing worse, young people, than to be questioned when you knew at the end of this that pop or that punishment is coming. But they made you talk about it. My mom was the queen of pulling up a chair at the head of my bed, which meant I knew sleep was going to be little this night, because she would sit that chair right there at the head of my bed and talk to me, questioning why. Well, help me understand.
Help me understand. Why did you do that? I tell you,
And I would rather, I wanted her to could you just beat me?
you don't want it.
And see, that's another thing. My mother and my dad, I've never, my brother and I got one whipping, living on Darlington Street when we first came to Florence. And Leonard and I say maybe 5. I'm 5, so that means my brother is 4. Or it may have been 5 and 6. But anyway, small children, we are playing in the backyard. And I had the lid off of the trash can. And we had found this little thing of matches. This is the fall of the year when the grass is dry. And he would start the grass to burning, and then we would sit there and watch the grass burn. And then when it started getting high, I put the lid from the trash can on it and out in the fire. Well, that worked for maybe the first 2 times. The fire came from under that lid and burned up the backyard, my mama's sheets on the line, and all. My mother didn't say, she didn't come in huffing and puffing and cussing or anything. In fact, I've never really heard her curse like we do today. But my mama proceeded to get the fire department there, and she just told us to go into the house and take off your clothes. That's what she said, just that calmly. Go on now, Maggie, and take your brother. Y'all go in the house and take off those clothes.
Well, now, I think we might know the end of that story.
Thank you.
I think some of us do.
That's the one and only one.
Wow.
Thank you.
I tell
and
you
so,
what.
My punishment was this lady in my ear.
Yeah. Listen, I remember some of those talking tos, and I just had to prepare myself. I can understand that. But I tell you something. I don't know how it happened, but we have reached an hour already. Class, like the bell is about to ring and class is about to be over. But I see I got some students in here with their hands up. They got something to say to you. So I got to let them say what they need to say before we dismiss class. How about that?
All righty.
All right. We've got Tori Williams. She said, I love listening to Miss Maggie. We also have Councilwoman LaShonda Neesmith Jackson in here. She says, love you, Senator Glover. She says, also, my mentor, thank you for pouring wisdom into us. We've got some claps and applause from Precious Pearl. Also, we have Piece of Cake Conversation says the power of mentorship, the power of being respectful of elders and being coachable.
Yes.
Right? We have Audrey Davison here, who is also an educator. She said, thank you, Senator Glover, for sharing your wisdom and your knowledge. So that's what the class has said for today.
Oh, God bless them all. And in that class, you got some powerful people. Your councilwoman, LaShondra, who, by the way, we owe a big, honey, that's been a teaching mom. Her son is the one that just got accepted to Harvard. Yes, Deshaun just got accepted. But because she comes out much younger, but she comes out of this kind of teaching environment, homeschooling.
Homeschool. All right. So,
Miss Samuels, all of these are people who are making their mark.
mm-hmm.
I look at them, and she's president of the NCNW here in Florida, Miss Modestine
Right.
Samuels, doing marvelous things. We're working on a museum.
All right.
For Florence.
Great.
African Americans right here in the old Bethune School.
All right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I think we'll have something else we can talk about in the next edition of Heritage Homeschool. I hope everybody had an awesome evening. Thank you all for joining us, Miss Glover. Woo! You are the best. I could talk to you for hours. I could just, not even hit this button and end this live stream. But I know that we need to make everybody get in a routine. Don't miss class. If you want more, you can get more. And you can also go back and watch you can watch the previous episode and anything that you want to see here that you've heard here tonight so that you can take some notes. Just go back and hit the replay. Hit that replay. Make sure you subscribe. We'll be back here again on the last Thursday of the month. All right?
Thank you.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much. And I've got one more thing to say. Do your homework. She gave you some names. So make sure that you look those up. Look them up. All right, y'all. One love. The bell is ringing. I gotta find me a school bell. I gotta get that into my I gotta get that.